Da iniziare. Ok. Ah, aspetta, devo prendere il puntatore. Scusami. Il telecomando per le slide è qui? Il telecomando per le slide. I think we can start. Ok. I'll say it in Italian first, okay? Buongiorno e buon pomeriggio a tutte e tutti. Welcome to Bologna. Good afternoon. Also, I want to say hello and welcome to the people who are following the streaming. We are streaming live, so I know that some people are registered and follow the stream. I'm extremely pleased to have all of you here in Bologna. We said that 3 years ago, that we wanted to have the beginning of the project in Bologna, and then of course we couldn't. We were writing up the application for our project from February until April 2020. There is no need for me to tell you that, of course, the following months have not been very easy for traveling and meeting in person. And so ENJOI project was really written and then also started and launched within the period of the pandemic. So since then, we have been, during all of our internal meetings as a consortium, saying that we wanted to meet eventually. We managed to meet in other places, but we promised our partners that we would have invited them over to Bologna. So I'm very happy that we managed to do that and that we're doing our final event here in Bologna, in this beautiful setting, which is the Museum of the History of the City of Bologna. And so welcome, all of you. Can I start with the slides, maybe? Let's see. You tell me when. Oh, okay. No? There. Okay, so it's been a long and a short 3 years, I have to say, because I was thinking this morning, I thought it went very fast on one side. But we know we have also been doing a lot of stuff, so I think it's really nice to look now as an overview of the project, which is what I will do at the moment. My name is Elisabetta Tola, for those who don't know it, and for the people who are following us online. And I'm a science journalist, but I'm also the ENJOI coordinator within the team of formicablu. Formicablu is a science communication agency based here in Bologna, and We are coordinating the consortium of 6 partners, and we'll mention all the partners, of course, during the afternoon. What I'm going to recommend is that if you are sharing online, you're doing some live tweeting or sharing online the event, please use the QR code for the streaming so more people will know. Of course, the streaming is on YouTube, so it will also remain as a recorded video. So that's also interesting. And use the hashtag scicomm and enjoy, please. Oh, too fast. Sorry. I have to go back. No? Okay. So you cannot read the agenda, but you all have the agenda in your bag. And it's quite a full agenda for the afternoon, so we will have different moments where we will present the different type of accomplishment and the focus. We will focus on the different steps that the project has been undertaking. So what I'm going to do now is really literally just an overview, also for the speakers who have joined us, and I'm really thankful for that. That will be talking tomorrow morning, so you can have an overview of what we've been doing in these 3 years. ENJOI stands for Engagement and Journalism Innovation for Outstanding Open Science Communication. It's basically a research project that was funded under the Horizon 2020 program within a bunch of 8 other projects. The program was a Science with and for Society. All of these projects are now closed, except ENJOI, which is closing right now. So it's the last of 8 projects focusing on science communication, assessing and researching different aspects of science communication. In our case, we decided to focus on science journalism and on any form of science communication that's produced and distributed through a media platform. This is extremely important because even defining what journalism is today is very difficult. And we don't, of course, belong anymore to the situation where journalists are only the people writing on a legacy media. And our idea was really that of looking at all of those people who produce content, focus on science or dealing with science, even in a very broad way, but that will be distributed by a media platform. For example, research institutions, they all have their public website, but also we have lots of content creators who have their individual profiles. We have activists, we have teachers and schools and universities. So there are many protagonists who are actually producing content that has to do with science, and then they distribute that. The idea was also to focus on the users of science communication, and so try to understand exactly how they get this kind of information and how they can assess the kind of information they get. So how they can choose and pick information that's reliable and useful. We decided to do that using and adopting a co-creation methodology. And it's very important to say that the co-creation was done in a sort of a circular way. So basically, we decided to go through rounds of co-creation. I will explain that more in a bit. And also, we will have one specific talk focusing on that. And it's very important to say that the co-creation involved and engaged both producers and users of science communication. That was very important for us. The main outputs of ENJOI, from the beginning, we thought it's very important to come out with very concrete outputs. Some of them you have them in your bags, and some of them you can download them from the website. We wanted to set up and define a list of principles, standards, and indicators for science communication and science journalism. These principles have been then condensed into a manifesto. We will have a specific session on these after me. We decided to co-design tools, innovative tools that are useful for the people who do produce contents and need to be supported, or people who read contents and need to be supported in judging the value. So we have that particular focus on tools. We have produced a lot of research on the way. I will go a little bit more on that in a moment. And then there is the setting up of an observatory. The idea is to leave a sort of a landmark output that will stay beyond the project. So the project is ending at the end of December, officially, but there are a number of outputs and that ENJOI wants to bring forward and wants to really keep living alive, and the observatory is one of them. And of course, we also have produced a number of policy recommendations. All European projects are also asked and solicited to give recommendations for future policies. Okay, too fast. Right, so this is the actual pathway we took. It's not a straight one, as you can see. I have to add one very important issue here, that we decided to focus a lot on the Southern European region. And this is because many of us work in this region, and we know that the state of the media ecosystem and of the media environment is very different and very diverse compared to the situation in countries where, for example, media are more supported, they're more independent, they are better funded. And in our case, particularly, to focus on Italy, Portugal, and Spain, which are the 3 countries of the Southern European region we decided to involve, was really important also to see how, for example, freelancers, science journalists that work with many different media can still do a good job and can still be supporting and doing a good job, even in a media environment that's not that friendly and not very supportive. We then have our 4th country, which is Belgium. We decided to use that as a sort of a landmark, benchmark at the European level. So we set up our job and our work. We will go into details then with the other speakers, but I just go very quickly through the entire process, looking for what's already available in terms of principle, standard, and indicators, and then set up a number of engagement workshops involving a big community of people, like different types of stakeholders in the 4 countries. And we did this workshop to actually co-design together with these stakeholders the standard principle and indicator. And from one workshop to the next, we were actually doing an internal mutual learning meeting that was improving this list. So the list was not the same, was going to the 2nd workshop, and so on and so forth. Just to give you the idea that basically we kept improving this list and trying to select the actual SPI, as we used to call them, standard principle and indicators, that were deemed more interesting and more useful. In parallel, we also did a lot of desk research, science research on the lit review, and also focus report on the media landscape. From the engagement workshop, we then had an internal consensus workshop. We selected a sort of a more defined list. The list was also condensed in a manifesto, and then we went to the labs. Labs are slightly different from the engagement workshop because they are focused, each lab is focused on one type of stakeholder. So we had a lab with journalists, a lab with citizens, a lab with the researchers, and a lab with policymakers and funders. Again, through the labs, we had a further selection of these standard principle and indicators, so we got to the end with the list that you have today in your bag, and that is actually downloadable from the website. I will show that later, so for the people who are following us online. In parallel, we also ask all the people participating in the workshop and the labs to give us ideas for a set of innovative tools, so tools that could be prototyped and used for their needs. Okay. So again, this is just a representation, a different representation of our circular methodology. And I will go faster on this because we are already, I don't want to take too much time from the other speakers, but at the end of this long process, we have a list of SPI, we have a manifesto, and we have 8 tools. The manifesto is one of the documents you have in your bags, but it's also downloadable from our website. And basically, it's something that we hope can be super useful for the people who want to have also sort of an inspiring idea about what science journalists could be and what could look in the future. This is the list of the principal standard and indicators. Again, you have it in your bag, and again, it's also downloadable from the website. And then we set up the observatory. The observatory, for the moment, it's a platform within the ENJOI website. It will become more of a solo sort of product, and we will discuss that today, so I won't say anything more right now, but at the moment you can join it through the website. As I said, we did a lot of research on the way, so these are 4 focus reports that we did on different levels, different type of innovation in journalism. So, for example, solution journalism, data journalism, innovative format journalism, and open science and open data one. And engagement one, sorry. And I think it's really nice to see this focus report as a work in progress, because we analyze a lot of case studies. We did a lot of interviews with people who actually work in the different media. There has been a lot of research. You'll hear the protagonist later today on this, but we have done a number of analysis also, and trying to apply to see how in the media today some of these standard principal indicators are already applied or not applied. And finally, and I think this is extremely important to mention, we also decided to have an internal evaluation process, thanks to the University of Twente and our partners there. We decided to set up a system to evaluate the entire process and get to the end with an internal evaluation system. Of course, we also produced some recommendations. I will go into that at the end of the afternoon. Oh, too fast? Okay. And I can anticipate, but we will talk more later, that ENJOI is finishing, but as being part of this community of 8 projects, the Science Sweden for Society project, it will continue somehow, and we will discuss also together how, into a new project that's just been launched. It's called Coalesce, and the project is being funded again by the Horizon Europe program as a sort of a big effort to build a virtual lab for the future European Competence Center for Science Communication. The Coalesce project website has been launched yesterday, so we're very happy that today we can actually show it, and it's just starting its journey, and that there is more and much more that we want to say about that, even today and tomorrow. I will stop here for now, and I invite, I'm too fast on this. I invite Michele Catanzaro, our colleague, science journalist, and is part of the Catalan Association for Science Communicators, and he will go into more details of the SPI and manifesto. Lascio l'agenda qua.
Sì.
Thank you, Michele.
Thanks a lot, Elisabetta. Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Thanks also for having me here, having me invited here. This morning I was having a walk in Bologna and I was suffering Stendhal syndrome all the time. But also I'm very happy for meeting a lot of people. We have worked together all this time personally, and it's really a celebration of what happened in this year. For me, it has been a privilege to interact with all of you, with formicablu, with Science for Change, with all the partners. I cannot name them all now. So, okay, Elisabetta has shown the pathway that we have gone through in the ENJOI project. I will focus on, let's say, the ripest fruit of the project, which is the SPI and the manifesto. So as Elisabetta has told, in reality, it's not the only fruit. There will be much more, and I'm convinced that among us, there will be much more collaboration in the future and more fruits and publications, and that this project will really bring many children to the world. But I will focus on this, which is certainly the main outcome at the moment, okay? So in terms of the pathway that Elisabetta has shown, I will focus, oh my God. I will focus specifically, let's say, on the beginning and the end, okay? So the input that we created in terms of draft SPIs, draft criteria for open outstanding science communication, and then how this, through a participatory process, was transformed into the final version or the current version of the SPIs and a manifesto, okay? I will not enter much in detail in the intermediate projects because we have people that have worked much more on that part and that will tell more about it later. Okay, so first of all, let me remind you what SPI means. This is something that we are going to say many times these days. It means standard principles and indicators of what? Of open outstanding science communication. Basically, the paths, the steps I will go through in the presentation will be the preliminary SPIs, so how we incepted the process, what we gave in a sort of top-down way to the citizens to work on, then how we will jump to the end, so how these were transformed, transmutated into the current and final version of the SPI. I will focus on what the participatory process, the citizen validation has brought, has changed in this process, and finally, I will tell you about the manifesto, which is sort of the flagship product of the project. So in terms of the preliminary SPIs, basically, we started the project by saying, OK, we need to provide to citizens a view of what's out there now, OK? So the idea was drafting a series of criteria for excellent science communication based on the existing literature, let's say, OK? So we relied on 3 inputs that were a survey of the academic literature, a survey of the gray literature, which is very important in this case because a lot of criteria are not contained in peer-reviewed papers, but are contained in blog posts, newspaper articles, codes of conduct, etc. And finally, very important, an expert consultation, a wide expert consultation that granted us that through these 3 ways, we have probably found the vast majority of existing criteria for excellent science communication, or at least the reference one, the one that are shared through, by the community. The output of this project was massive. We found 50 key documents containing criteria for excellent science communication, and then we processed them, that arrow there, to fuse them into a draft document, which was then fed into the participatory process and evolved, as I will tell later. But first, let me quickly go through the 3 inputs, what we did. In terms of the survey of academic literature, we carried out, with a lot of people that is here in the room, an in-depth query of the Web of Science with a series of combined keywords. I've put only a subset of the one we used, to identify peer-reviewed publications that potentially contained draft SPIs, that potentially contained tables, lists, or whatever form of criteria of excellence in science communication. And we came up with quite a bunch of results. Secondly, we queried the web also with keywords to identify all this gray literature. And here you have an example, a series of examples of the things we found, like, for example, codes of conduct, blog posts, tips that were put together by relevant journalists, etc. And third, the collective brain of the ENJOI project drafted a list of 60 experts with a lot of care for diversity in terms of gender, geography, also type of expertise, not only scholars, but also practitioners, the different positions in the science communication world, so journalists, institutional communicators, researchers, etc. And we asked them basically a simple question: could you share with us any list or table of principles, standards, and indicators of good science communication you are aware of? The email was much longer because we had to do a captatio benevolentiae, so we had to convince them to share their knowledge with us, but that was the key question. 18 experts answered, and throughout this process we had a sort of backup that what we had found was consistent with what the expert community was actually working with. So in the end, here I've put you some screenshots of the 50 items list that we found, just to give you an idea that many of them come from academic literature, but are referred to different areas of science communication, ranging from visual communication to journalism to public engagement, etc. Others come from the gray literature, once again applied to different areas of science communications. Others come from the expert consultation, etc. So the next step was, OK, what do we do with these 50 documents? OK, I'm in time. First of all, one very interesting finding was that there was a remarkable coincidence among these 50 documents, OK? So it was really impressive, let's say, that different people from different areas were really sharing a lot of common criteria. Then Science for Change helped us with a co-creation process that was internal to the ENJOI project. So later we will talk about the ones that were with the citizens. This was really designed for us to co-create what? To co-create a series of lists of criteria that sort of merged what came out from this 50 publication. So first of all, we produced a series of 6 specialized lists, so criteria of excellence for science communication for journalists, institutional communicators, scientists, people in public engagement, people involving in social media, etc. And then all this was further fused into the thing you see up there, which was sort of our first draft of what is excellent, open, outstanding science communication. So as you can see, a very simple thing. There are 9 criteria with a short description. So afterwards, all this was fed into the participatory process, which is something that I'm saying in 3 seconds, but it means basically 2 years, I think, of work of the project and really the core of the project. So I will not talk much about it because somebody else will do later, but just to give you an idea, oh, I'm so sorry, the picture is blurred. Anyway, you can find it on the website, I think. So just to give you an idea of the real sheer size of the work that was done, there were 2 big rounds of participatory processes, the engagement workshops and the labs. They were done in 4 different countries, the partners of the project, Belgium, Italy, Spain, Portugal. They involved a wide variety of stakeholders, of course, journalists, science communicators, but also engaged citizens, activists, researchers, policymakers, etc. Those were not the only places where these criteria were reworked. Also, they were commented and discussed in, I think, 5 major conferences of science communication, and then were worked inside the process in internal meetings and in the consensus workshop that Elisabetta mentioned before. And so the outcome is this. Here you are, okay? So this is a screen capture in which I've managed to put in 1 slide the final version of our SPIs. So unfortunately, we don't have time to go through each one of them individually, but I do, and also you have them in your bags and you have them on the website, and you really need to read it carefully to sort of understand them deeply. But I do want to give you the map, okay, to give you clues of how you can orient yourself in these SPIs. So as you can see, compared to what we have seen before, that thing up there, these are much more complex and much more structured. Okay, up, tick, okay. Why have I? No? Okay, stop there, please. Okay, so first of all, you see 3 colors, which means that those criteria were broken down in the 3 big categories of principles, standards, and indicators. And then you see 3 columns. That it means that that was not the only division or the only, let's say, dimension of the map. There was another dimension, which were thematic clusters. And the thematic clusters are ethics and deontology, methodology and practice, and taking care of the relationship with the public. So basically, the colors point to the 3 different declinations of the initial criteria that we had at the beginning. So principles are the foundation, the guide that shaped the framework of science communication. Standards are reference models and rules that are used to measure quality, and indicators are actually the real measurable and observable factors. And then you have also these 3 thematic clusters. So really, through these 2 dimensions, standard, principle, indicator, and thematic clusters, you can orient yourself in the SPIs. So what are the features of this SPI with respect to what was out there in the literature before these 50 publications? First of all, very important, they are operable. This is why I've put those tools up there. So they can be really used in the real world in terms of evaluating science communication, but also in terms as a guide for producing outstanding science communication. And secondly, they are citizen validated, okay? So they are not just the point of view of one scholar or one specific stakeholder on open outstanding science communication, but they are really gone through the real life, the real experience of a wide variety of stakeholders in many different countries, okay? So we believe that they are much more comprehensive and they are much more connected with the real world of science communication. So what's in this criteria? This is the part that probably is, I mean, the most interesting part, let's say, of the presentation, because it's not what is written explicitly in the criteria, but it is a reading of the criteria in terms of what's new, what's different, what comes from the past, what's added on top of that, etc. So it's something that if you read the criteria carefully and the manifesto carefully, you will understand, but I will make it easier for you because I will make it explicit. So first of all, by definition, standards, principles, and indicators of science, of open outstanding science communication, of course, they will include a lot of things that are already widely known, widely shared in the community, everybody knows about them, etc. But it is very interesting that through this participatory process, the stakeholders we involved were very insistent on these theoretically well-established criteria, okay? So I'm talking about things like independence, honesty, integrity, transparency, the use of independent and diverse sources, conveying the complexity of science, unraveling the collection of science with society, tailoring the communication to the audience. Those are things that those of us that are in science communication, by the way, now I realize I have not introduced myself. I'm a science journalist, and since last Friday, also a professor at the Autonomous University of Barcelona, and I teach also at the Valencia International University, science journalism, in both cases. So those that are familiar will say, okay, but I mean, those things are well established. But why do we think there was such a big insistence? First of all, because by definition, it is important that these criteria, these SPIs include these aspects. And secondly, we believe, because these aspects are written in stone, but they are not often applied in reality, especially in some of the contexts we're around, Southern Europe, as Elisabetta mentioned before. So that is sort of the more traditional part of the criteria. But what was really, really fascinating is that through the participatory process, we found at least 6 big lines of innovation, 6 trends that really point us to the future and that make these SPIs a guide, not only a reflection of the past, but a guide for the future. And I will summarize them briefly in the 6 minutes remaining. First line of innovative trends that emerged in the process, deep engagement, okay? So we found a trend towards moving from engagement as basically a step at the end of the process, something that you do in communication at the end by, looking for likes on social media, etc., to something that is an ingredient of the communication process from the very beginning, okay? So whatever communication, journalistic project, etc., is designed, it should include engagement from the very beginning. This also means a series of radical changes in which communication is usually thought. So first of all, not one way, but 2 ways. So engagement really means that the communication is mutual. And secondly, that the agenda of communication is not established bottom-up by the media, by institution, etc., but it's really, top-down, but it's really emerging bottom-up from the audience. So there I've put some examples of how this is translated in practice, like audience-driven reporting, widening the range of sourcing, building a community, both as a tool for engagement, but also as a tool for sustainability. And interestingly, 4 out of the 6 trends that emerged in the participatory process were clearly aligned with the focus reports that Elisabetta mentioned before. So it was very nice that the agenda that the project had established in terms of the focus reports they would be working on really matched with a lot of the things that emerged in the participatory project. By the way, the reading of these focus reports for me, I was not directly involved in them, so I received them as a reader, and it was really inspiring. It was really great, great work, and I strongly suggest everything to check them. Second innovative trend, open science. So we saw that the paradigm of open science is being translated very clearly into science communication. And this is not only in terms of using open access sources, which of course, or providing open access results, which is sort of the obvious thing. The interesting thing is a drive, a call towards openness in the process of communication, okay? So we are thinking, I mean, the most obvious examples of what I'm talking about is, for example, in data journalism, where media disclose the process that they've used in data journalism, but these trends toward openness can be applied in many different ways. Here I have a personal example in which me and Marco Boscolo were, and yeah, it was only Marco in that project, were pioneering. We carried out an investigative project, and we accompanied it with a blog in which we really explained to people not only the results, but how we did the project. We provided them additional sources, additional information that we had exploited, etc. I'm referring to the African Woman Scientists on the Move project. So openness can be seen in many different ways. And this was aligned with a second focus report, also very interesting, on precisely open science and in journalism. Third trend, new technologies. Of course, there was a big call from the citizens that participated into the process in taking into account the revolution that has been created basically by social networks, okay? And there was a strong call to a braver digital transition. There is a perception that science communication is being a bit conservative, okay? That is not really aligning itself to how much technology is reshaping communication. There I've put some of the ways in which technology is reshaping, algorithms, social networks, virality, digital metrics, etc. And this is discussed in the focus report of innovative digital formats. Fourth trend, solutions, okay? So while we come from a tradition in which a lot of science communication is focused on basically portraying the facts, there is a call, a drive towards providing information also on the so what question, okay? So what do we do with these facts, okay? I'm sure, and this is written in our publications, that the pandemics and the climate crisis, of course, are a big driver of this tendency towards solution. For example, in the coverage of climate, we cannot expect anymore to just report on, you know, how much temperature is expected to increase or what's the finding number 1,000 on, you know, ice samples, etc. We are expected to report only on what do we do, what are the scientific ways, the rational ways of approaching this problem, okay? And this issue is aligned with the focus report on solution journalism. Bear with me, I know this is intense, but it's really valuable, I think. So another major trend that we found, and there are two more, this one and one more, is the issue of inclusion, okay? So with respect to the criteria that emerged from literature in which inclusion was not really relevant, probably here we see the effect of the great cultural change regarding diversity that we have seen in the last few years. Diversity in all the terms, not only gender, but also ethnicity, culture, socioeconomic background, cognitive abilities, etc. And this does not only mean, you know, we need to include different, more diverse sources in our reporting, in our science communication. It includes including diversity in the communication organizations, newsrooms, press offices, scientists that do communication, etc. Of course, including diversity in the sources, including a point of view that is sensitive to diversity on the facts we report on, and also including diversity in the ways we communicate this fact, including, for example, taking into account that not all the audience is identically equivalent or identically capable of dealing with the same contents, okay? And that aligned not specifically with any specific focus report, but with an issue that emerged here and there in the process, which was the issue of decolonizing science communication. and a less Eurocentric perspective on science communication. One other big trend was the concern with polarization, okay? So what do we do with a society that is increasingly polarized? Should we shape our messages to circumvent polarization? In this area, we don't have an answer, but we have a series of issues that are included in the SPIs that are taken into account, ranging from false balance, partisanship, self-censorship, as issues that should be sort of red flags in science communication. So these 6 things are the innovative aspects that the process has brought to the SPIs. Oh, I'm 2 minutes over, sorry, but I'm almost done. So one last point is the manifesto, okay? So the manifesto is sort of a condensed version of the SPIs that is also sort of literary, okay? That it can be read not as a list, but as a text, okay? And it is interesting that the structure of the manifesto, there is an intro and a conclusion, intro and living document, but the key structure of the text is precisely the 2 things that I've said. So deepening the roots, the part of the manifesto that is called deepening the roots refers to these reasserted ideas on science communication, and the part that is called bearing new fruits refers to the innovative trends that emerged through the workshops, okay? And here, I invite you to read the manifesto. It is really beautiful. And we decided to, and I conclude with this, we decided to use as a metaphor, this metaphor of this vegetable metaphor, this tree metaphor, okay? So this idea of deepening the roots and bearing new fruits, because we think it's very aligned with the spirit of what emerged from the participatory process. Thanks for your attention.
Grazie, Michele. Thank you, Michele. I think this was a good way to go through the process. Even for us who have been through that, to see it all condensed like that, it's super useful. We go to the next session now, which is focusing more on the research we did on the media landscape, and I'm calling Marco Boscolo, a science journalist from formicablu team. Giulia Bonelli is not here today for personal reasons, and she's following the streaming, and say hi to all of you. And we also want to say hi to Giulia, and obviously thanking her for the work she did in this particular part of the project. So Marco, the floor is yours.
Hello. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Elisabetta. And hello to everybody. And first of all, I want to thank you all because arriving at the end of this journey, it has been a pleasure and an honor to work in this consortium. It is not always the same in other situations. So I tell you by my heart that it is what I feel. So, as Michele already said, he referred to 4 different focus reports that we did in the idea of researching what's out there. So until now, we looked at how we thought about the outstanding science communication and science journalism, and what we tried to do from a practitioner point of view was to understand what's already perceived as outstanding out there, and how from that examples we can trace some trends, some inspiration, and some information. The idea is not just to trace a panorama of what's out there, but also to feed the other work packages of the project, like Michele already said for the SPIs, but not only the SPI, but also many others work packages. No? Thank you. Okay, this one. Good. Okay, so we start from here. I have to say something before going into the detail of the reports and the work we did, and is saying that the journalism industry is still facing. It is something in a way incredible. It's still facing a sort of a transition because, as I said here in the slide, there is an uncompleted digital transition in the industry from the traditional way we perceive and we see medias like printed newspaper, broadcasting, to, as Michele said, what happened after the eruption on the market of social media and digital contents in general. So after a couple of centuries, there has been a huge, huge pressure, not only on the way journalism is conducted and is perceived by the public, but also on the business model. That's why many newsrooms tried to find ways to be sustainable in the new environment that has been created by the eruption of the digital transformation. It doesn't mean only that we looked at different formats, so short video for social media or interactive things you can have on the internet, but also that the driving force of the digital transformation forced newsrooms and media organizations to rearrange their processes, because otherwise it wouldn't be possible to be sustainable in the new environment. So these people looking into working into the media industry, normally they don't look too much at scientific literature or scientific research on their process, on their work, but they try to stay alive in the community. So that's why we looked at what was perceived through, example, what has been selected by conferences on journalism or by prizes around Europe and not only Europe, to understand what is considered outstanding and working in this new environment. Okay, long things to say that maybe we thought that we could be in front of also new audiences, because new formats, new channels of communication allowed traditional media and new media to reach new audiences. But, and I cut it short, the point here for us is that there was a risk from the industry point of view just to look at digital transformation as a technical issue, something that we need to find a way to make it work. But for us, in the ENJOI project, the idea of the digital transformation is that it is changing the way we perceive and we conduct the journalistic practice. So it is a new way to do things, and it has to do with the risk that this kind of reflection on the quality we try to do at ENJOI was left aside. So that's why we looked for the excellence, and so we look at how these outstanding examples are working in assuring the quality of the journalism act. So, as I mentioned before, we had 5 main outputs out of our research and our work, which are 4 focus reports and the ENJOI Observatory that has already been mentioned. And I want to go briefly into the main results of each of these output. So I start with the first one, which is the analysis report on the use of data in open science. And it has to do with the fact that we saw from the example and the interviews we conducted that the digital transformation put pressure not only in the sustainability of the industry, but also on the trust of the public towards journalism. So in this case, we found out that the use of open data, and also not only the use as a source, but as Michele already said, the disclosure of the data as a kind of secondary outcome of the journalistic effort is seen and perceived by practitioners as a point of transparency, and that can be something that can be used to build a new way of trust relationship between the public and the journalist. And then also, as I said, we don't want to look too much into the technical part, but we have to say that, for example, we saw new ways of collecting data using, for example, science. So there is a wonderful example of that in this focus report, and it is an example from the New York Times where they use Arduino tools to collect the quality of the air in 2 different neighborhoods in New Delhi. And it is something that is a new discovery for science and also for science journalism. And this is something that has to do with technology. And then we saw that when we looked at the fringe of the field, we saw that there are a lot of new practices that have been copied from different fields, not only journalists, but other fields, like open source intelligence. It is a practice that is emerging in the field, and also, of course, the use of the freedom of information laws that are in most of the European countries now available, and so that provides new source of information through a new way of getting to the source of your journalistic work. And then the other thing that we saw, and this is something that we are very interested on, is the transnational effort that is characterizing the new wave of data journalism and journalism, science journalism in general. On the second report, we looked at the digital formats, the new innovative digital formats, and we found out that, as I said before, we don't have to look exactly, and this is something that many practitioners told us, you don't have to look at only the technological part, but innovation is a kind of state of mind, as I said here. Innovation is both a guiding principle and a tech effort. You cannot have one without the other. Otherwise, you will have a sterile kind of output of out of your innovative process. So the idea here is that we have to reflect as practitioners and also as maybe people looking at how science journalists work today to think of innovation as a social, philosophical, and ethical level, not just, as I said before, in a technical part. And then, quoting what Michele was already saying, innovation is not the same all over the place. If you think from a different background what innovation means, you can find different approaches to innovation. And that is richness in the field of science journalism that sometimes when you looked only at the academic research on the subject, you maybe miss out. And so that's why, for us, it was one of the main outcomes of this report. Okay, this one. As the last one of these reports was the one on solution journalism, because as Michele said, oh, sorry. Now I understand why it is difficult. Too much. Okay, good. Okay. So yes, solution. So solution journalism, okay, as Michele said, solution journalism is emerging especially in relation to the climate crisis and the experience we had, for example, with the pandemic. We are perceived as journalists as the one that are only telling the bad news, and it is a very important role in the society, but it is not enough anymore, because for 2 reasons. One, there is the question of trust, as I mentioned before. If we only are able to tell bad stories, bad examples, we end up in eroding the trust that we have from the society as journalists. And the second problem is that, and pandemics and the climate crisis is showing it very well, there is a complexity there that cannot be addressed just by telling the bad side or just from one angle. So you need to think of a new way to tell this kind of complex story. And solution journalism is one of them that is emerging now. So here we have some, there are 6 points that are the main outcomes of this analysis we made of what is considered in the community now outstanding solution journalism with regard to science. And as you can see, many of the bold words that are here are corresponding to what Michele already showed you. So we found from 2 different approaches, we found a common solution, and this is something that gives strength to both the work that Michele showed you and the work we did in this part of the project. Okay, last output of the work package was the observatory that started to work in the last year of the project. So for a couple of years, we looked at the panorama out there. We talked with all our colleagues in the room, and then we started to see how the things that we found out in the focus reports were already in the discussion around Europe on science journalism and science communication. So what we did is trying to continue to observe new research and new things that are appearing in the field, and then can be useful to continue the discussion in this living document idea that we had for all the project. So we divided the observatory into 3 main channels that are highlighted here: networking, references, and toolbox. The idea is that on that page of the website you can find hints, you can find documents, you can find also ideas for new tools to use as a journalist science communicator. And not only you find that, but also you can find also networking occasion. Because as I said before, transnational collaboration are a key element of the innovation in journalism that is going on today in the field. So the idea of making people work together is key, but of course they have to know each other, otherwise it is impossible. So that's why we wanted to include this in the observer. As you can see here, is just an example of a couple of screenshots from the website, where you can see the different color key we used for the 3 channels. And the idea is now that this is going to be the legacy of this part of the project with in the next month and years. And this is in part because the observatory is going to be inherited in a way by a new project that just started last April, which is called Coalesce, where many of the people involved in the 8th SWOFS project that Elisabetta showed to you at the beginning of the afternoon are involved. The idea is to build a competence, but we have something on that in detail later on. But the idea here is that we don't know yet how, or we are discussing how, but we want to continue this work, and that's why maybe during the coffee break, I don't know, we should, sorry? In the interconnecting session, we will also discuss about how do you expect this kind of work to continue after ENJOI project officially ends. So that's all from me, and I'll give the floor back to Elisabetta, I think.
Thank you, Marco. I think this is, I hope this has given you an idea of what Michele was saying before. Coming from different streams of research, we come to sort of a common ground, certain principles, certain ideas, certain needs are also the same, and they come really from different sources. So now the floor goes to our partners from the University of Twente, Anne, Gistra, and Anouk de Jong, but I think it's Anne presenting. Here the focus is more, and it's a very important part of the project as well, is to look at the relationship between the scientist and the media. Of course, all of these projects in the Science with and for Society program need to have a focus also on how we can incentivize or support scientists in entering in the field of communication. So ENJOI also looked into that, and Anne, here, the floor is yours. Yeah, be careful. It's super sensitive, goes very fast. Thanks, Anne.
Maybe I can also use my own one, but I think it's preferred to be using this one. So I will try very carefully. Here. So what we did, we looked at, we conducted research within the project. So our work package was about the science-media relationship, and I will present the research findings. So to give you an overview, we conducted 2 strands of research within the project, and one was the findings from the evaluation of the workshops, the activities, and the other was an evaluation of a deeper analysis of the science-media relationship. And then we formulated, at the end, we formulated 7 guidelines, also to be used in the observatory. So the 2 strands of research, so those were the evaluation of the ENJOI workshops and the analysis of the science-media relationship, as I said already. And maybe to give you an overview of the deliverables that were connected to the research. Okay, we had 2 reports related to the media, or to the analysis of the workshops, the activities, and then these should go together. We had 4 deliverables related to the other research, and we already published 1 article related to one of the studies, and we are preparing 2 other articles at the moment. So we hope to submit them hopefully before the end of the project. So what we did in the evaluation of the workshops, we combined we applied a mixed methodology. So we combined different methods to get a broader perspective on what was found in the what people found of the workshop. So we conducted we handed out a questionnaire, an online questionnaire beforehand, and then we conducted interviews with representatives of people in the workshops afterwards, and we also collected. Oh, okay, because then I thought it was going around then. We also collected observations from each of the workshops. What did we find? Oh, this should go together, so I'll just do it like this. I think a few of the results are that for the co-creation and engagement methodology, as a whole, the participants found that they appreciated that a lot. And the workshops were really well prepared professionally, and also enabled in-depth discussions, which also contributed to people's own reflections, so their own professional insights in what they are doing. And as Michele already told, the participants came from very different backgrounds. And as a whole, they evaluated the development of the SPIs and the SPIs, the outcomes, as a valuable guideline. And both the workshops, but also the SPIs should be promoted, was one of the outcomes. And what is also the case, that the participants said that both the science communication and the science journalism field can benefit from those kind of discussions and reflections as we did, as we organized within the ENJOI activities. But what is also needed is that it's important to tailor those discussions to the different needs of the different groups. So not one discussion with everyone, because the needs for the type of discussions you want to have with journalists should be different or can be different from those with science communicators, for example, and also those from NGOs or organizations working as intermediaries in the field, so to say. Then we did the other strand of research, which was more analysis of the science-media relationship, and in total we conducted 3 studies. The first one was more general about the science-media relationship by means of a literature review, and then we also studied the scientist perspectives and specifically the media perspective. And in both, all the studies we also conducted, a combination of methods. Not in the literature, however, a literature review. So what we did, we tried to get an overview of the changes and challenges which are already in the literature in other studies. And in total, we reviewed 37 academic papers, like articles published or book chapters. And the premise from the study was that science news is a main source of information, of scientific information, and the 2 main actors in that process are the scientists and journalists, and therefore it's important to also know better what that science-media relationship entails and what is happening there. So we saw 2 main developments. One is the process of the medialization of science. So there's also different words for it, mediatization and mediation of science, which means that researchers and their research institute increasingly become aware of their role in the public domain, and they're increasingly interested in also doing outreach and communicating about their research. So that means that the relationship with the scientists, with the journalists are changing. On the other hand, you see the changing media landscapes. I think that's also a little bit reflected already in the other studies. So there's quite some challenges for journalists with less budget, the social media, but also different aspects playing a role. And for the COVID-19, you saw also differences. Because journalists had to deal with uncertain information, the speed of reporting increased even more. That was already a problem, but that was already a higher need for increased publication, or the publishing quicker. And one of the mechanisms that started to come up is the use of preprints and how to deal with that. And as a general, the journalists even more, and the studies showed already a more increased workload for journalists. On the other hand, we see that during the COVID-19 influence, the pandemic, it was also the case that researchers were willing and also able to participate and to contribute to the news output at that moment. So that was a good development. In the study where we conducted the scientist perspective that was led by our partners in Portugal, we specifically focused on the case of COVID-19, and the aim was to understand the nature and the effectiveness of the collaborations between scientists and journalists, and then specifically looking at what the scientists found. So there also we applied a mixed methodology with a questionnaire and also interviews. And this is very good. We already, we had to preprint the report, but also published an article about it. And to look a little bit about the main results is that during the encounters with the media during the pandemics, the motivations for researchers to participate were that they thought that citizens had the right to be informed, and also they found that their professional responsibility. What was interesting is that they they experienced it also as a positive assessment, which means that the relationship, even within the pressure that at that moment, is quite resilient. Some of the researchers experienced negative experiences. For example, they said that is due to their their own lack of confidence, but also to their lack of communication skills and media training, which is what I know from the Netherlands as well, that often we ask scientists to participate, but they are not trained during their training at the university, for example, to communicate about science. And specifically for COVID-19, is that indeed also the use of preprints, how to manage those uncertainties, and the increasing need for fighting mis and disinformation. So some of the lessons learned, is more reflection, self-reflection on both professions, and the cooperation can help between scientists and journalists, can also help in tackling those challenges. And then we looked also at the media perspective, also in a mixed methodology study, but we now focus on the case of artificial intelligence, because during the period that we were conducting the research, ChatGPT just came up, and of course COVID more or less had ended. So the idea of this perspective was to gain more insight into the quality of science journalism and in relation to artificial intelligence. We analyzed media news articles about AI, both quantitative and also qualitative, with help of the partners in the different countries and also the different languages. And we also conducted interviews with science journalists. And then we also produced the preprint, but the paper is in preparation. So what do we see? What is interesting, that maybe in the 4 countries, Belgium and Spain, Portugal and Italy, there are different media landscapes. So the situation for the journalists can vary quite a lot, but actually their style of reporting, we did not see that in the news output, in the news articles, in the style of reporting. So we found a comparable style, which is nice. So in the articles that were qualitatively analyzed, we saw a positive sentiment often about AI, an optimistic tone, and the perspectives and the interests of different stakeholders were, for example, included. And the news articles were mainly about the effects of AI on society, and not necessarily already about the effects of AI on the science journalist or on the journalism perspective. We also saw that the journalists in the news articles, there was an adherence to the principles of rigor, sources of information, and accessibility and relevance, mainly those. Because in the interviews we also, that was in the media, in the news articles, we kind of checked if all those principles were available. In the interviews, also the journalist emphasized the lack of funding and the changes because of the online media and the dealing with that, and the increased speed of reporting. So that is nice, because in all the 3 studies it more or less is confirmed. And they also said that the interactions with scientists had become easier in the last years and more regular, and they were positively valued. Regarding AI, so some of the journalists already, they published all about AI, and they used a little bit of AI tools in practice, but they were not expecting yet that AI would take over jobs completely. I must say that in the past few months now, there is so much more publications, so more news articles about AI and effects then during that period, I think everyone had to kind of get to used to what was happening with ChatGPT now, for example. So in the end, we formulated 7 guidelines based on both the outputs of the first strand of research and the second strand of research. So I think what we formulated is to organize engagement and co-creation workshops for in-depth discussions, because people really value that, and it's really helpful to get insights. But also promote the use of the SPIs. Several people emphasized that throughout in either the interviews or the reflections. But it is important then to tailor those discussions and to tailor also those training and workshops for professional development. And what is interesting in also the 4th guideline, I think it's very important to manage also the expectations of both journalists and scientists. And often, sometimes there are misunderstandings of what is possible and what journalists' perspectives are in writing an article and what the scientist's perspective is in collaborating with a media interaction. And therefore, I think it's also important to stimulate a more self-reflection on the own practices. So also to help researchers at universities understand how they are developing. So get a little bit of background information about the developments in science communication and science journalism. Almost the last one, I think it's very important to look at new ways and responsible ways of working for journalists, like solution journalism is one of those examples. It can also help probably with tackling the increased pressure and the changing media landscapes. And finally, of course, it's important to further study also the science-media relationship, especially in those areas that are understudied at the moment. So, which is why the reason why we conducted the research mainly in South European countries is because there's not so many studies looking at that perspective, and there's also in all the studies from the media, the literature review, mostly the perspective of the scientists study, and not so much the perspective of the journalists. So yeah, I would like to end it with that, and here are my contact details. Thank you.
Yeah, you can bring it down. Okay, so thank you, Anne. I think we have had enough input for the first part of the afternoon. So it's now time for our coffee break. We go downstairs. There is a coffee break for half an hour, so you can chat, relax, mix, whatever. And then we start back, thank you, sharp on time at 4:30, again here at the second floor. Thank you. quando siamo ripartiti. Before we start again, just a very brief information for the consortium partners. Can you hear me? Okay, so we need to take a picture of the consortium, and because we don't have one where we are all in the same picture. So after the session, if it's okay for the partners, we go downstairs and we take a picture of the full consortium, and then you're free to take a bit of a walk, whatever, and then we meet for the dinner, okay? You tell me when, scusa, mi dite voi quando siamo ripartiti. Stiamo andando, benissimo. Okay, so after the coffee break, here we go again. Now we enter in the session where we get a little bit more of information and insights about the co-creation process and the engagement process. Because engagement is a key word in ENJOI, I think it's extremely interesting to see and to hear from Michael Creek from Sticky Dot and Karina Matosinhos from Science for Change, how we actually developed a methodology within the process, both to engage the people and, of course, to do all the engagement processes, so the engagement labs, the engagement workshop and the labs. So, Michael and Karina, the floor is yours.
Ellie. Great. So, my name is Michael Creek. It's a real pleasure to be here with you in Bologna. I'm from Sticky Dot in Brussels, in Belgium. We're a team that lives and breathes co-creation. So, of course, for us, it was a real delight to be part of the co-creation process, not only running our own co-creation process in Brussels, but also overseeing the development of our ENJOI co-creation methodology. And so I'm going to talk you through a few tips on what we learned, what we can take from this co-creation process. We've been working with this together with my colleagues Maria Zolotanoza and Marzia Mazzanetto. Hi, Marzia. Maria sadly couldn't be with us. She's on parental leave. She had a different sort of deliverable to be working on the last few months. But we're looking forward to having her back, and I'm sure she will be following along. A bit about the co-creation process. First of all, what we did. So we co-created the entire process of ENJOI. We addressed barriers to participation. We finalized an adaptable methodology. We wanted to make sure that we were addressing the barriers that were raised in the development process, and we kept it flexible. This was something we really identified as essential, and I want to talk you through a little bit about how that came about. First of all, so the ENJOI co-creation methodology was itself co-created. What do I mean by this? So we got together as a bunch of partners, the teams from Italy, Belgium, Portugal, and Spain, and we looked at what are the barriers when we put together a co-creation process. Can I ask how many of you have run co-creation processes yourselves in or outside of ENJOI? Yeah, some of you. How many of you intend to run co-creation processes in the future? Some very confident hands up. So I want to share a little bit with you why co-creating a methodology, I think it worked, and the other tips that we would put forward from this. So co-creating the process, this meant running workshops with our own co-creation teams, looking at what do we typically see as the problems that come up running co-creation workshops. The result was that our participants identified engagement as a real challenge. How do we recruit participants and keep them engaged? The result was we put together a 5-step process developing collaborative partnerships. So here, this meant gaining internal buy-in. So are your colleagues in your organization really on board? Do they really understand what co-creation means? Stakeholder mapping. So a process of identifying who are the real key players that you want to invite on board your co-creation process. Prioritizing them, so strategically, who can we work with? Reaching out, and then kicking off the collaborative process. We put together a set of guidelines which were flexible and adaptable that the partners could implement. Next was the co-creation process itself. Our development process, we identified that it was difficult to involve the public directly in the workshops. And so we put down proposals of how we could gather public perceptions of what makes outstanding science communication and build the workshops on those. Another thing that our partners told us and that we feel ourselves is that it's very hard to plan ahead and schedule timing for these kind of co-creation processes. And what we needed was a flexible, modular approach. And so we split up our workshop methodology into 3 key stages: co-creating principles, identifying standards, defining indicators and tools, and we gave our partners the freedom to organize this as they liked. Finally, a European consensus workshop and labs were planned to finalize and validate the outcomes. A few tips then on how this was implemented. We kept timing super tight. One key concern from our partners was that these stakeholders don't have lots of time on their hands. They need to understand the need for the co-creation process, they want to be implementing it, and they need to be out of there in an afternoon. So we built a process where timing was tight, but that also added a dynamism and an energy to the workshops, which in the evaluation, which Anna and Anouk worked on, was shown to be appreciated by the participants. We used concrete examples. Very often, co-creation processes, particularly on standards, principles, indicators, these abstract terms, can be really difficult for even an experienced journalist or policymaker to get their heads around. So we wanted to bring it back to the concrete, and this is why we used the case studies that had been developed by ACCC and the team as part of ENJOI. We built them into the workshops themselves to have something concrete to talk about. Oops. We mixed large and small groups. This was a feature of the co-creation process that was really essential to make sure, on the one hand, that all voices could be heard, that for the quieter voices who are more comfortable to speak in smaller groups, that they felt empowered to discuss, while at the same time, we had a larger group discussion to ensure that there was consensus among the group. This structure, again, was really appreciated and was highlighted in the evaluation by participants. Networking was really crucial. We know that that's a core concern, and again, this is something that came up in our challenges identified by the partners, that these participants, they're sociable people. They want to chat, they want to talk. Many of our countries, including Belgium, where the science communication and science journalism community is not clearly defined, we wanted to use this as an opportunity to build community. And of course, this is in the interest of the ENJOI project. As we see, the observatory is where this community comes together. So time for networking as an incentive for participants was really crucial. So those are the key tips that I wanted to share with you. Co-create your process, keep timing tight, make it concrete, mix large and small, and make time for sharing and networking. You'll realize I haven't talked so much about the actual concrete outcomes, and that's because I'll be handing over to Karina in just a moment, who will talk us through what happened. But if you want to hear more about this type of co-creation process, we've just put together an interactive handbook, which you can find on the website. Here I focused on the positives. We also reflect on some learnings and criticisms of our own process. We really wanted to be honest with ourselves and pick out not only what we did great, but also where we could have improved. And so we go into detail in that interactive handbook and share our findings with you. Thank you very much, and I will hand over to Karina.
Thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. I'm Karina Matosinhos. I am a Brazilian journalist. I work at Science for Change. Science for Change is a Spanish company where we address social, environmental, and health challenges through citizen science, co-creation, and participatory process. So it's a pleasure to be here today sharing a little bit about this process of what did we learn in the co-creation in ENJOI. Like Michael gave a great overview about the methodology, and what I would like to do now with you is take you into a journey, the ones that were not able to be in their engagement workshops or the labs, and the ones that were able to be now would like to take a step back and imagine when they say, for example, 3, 2, 1, action, what actually happened in the engagement workshop and in the labs. So we learned many interesting things in the engagement workshops and labs. So I'll give a quick overall about when we talked so many times here today, engagement workshops, right? What did this actually mean? So engagement workshops was the moment where we co-created the standards, the principles, and the indicators, the SPIs, and we also had a moment to co-create the tools. So the engagement workshops, they happened in Italy, in Spain, in Belgium, and in Portugal. It was a huge diversity, so we had to take into account the local context, all of the diversity about language, socioeconomic differences. So every time we had a different engagement workshop, we had to consider this, like all of this diversity. In the engagement workshops, we had a variety of profiles. They were focused on practice and users, producers and target users. So we had, for example, science journalists, media editors. We had cross-sectional experts, local activists, teachers, and students. This in the engagement workshops. Oops. Then we had the labs. So when you talk about labs, we are talking about refining. So after the engagement workshops, we had a list that Michele already shared a bit about the SPIs, but it was time to refine a little bit this list. So we had the labs with the intention to refine this list and to also co-create the tools for these specific targets. So what we did, we inspired from the News Era. News Era is a project about citizen science and science communication, where some of the partners that are in ENJOI were also in the News Era, and it was coordinated by Science for Change. And in this project, we had a methodology where we used the bottom-up approach. So we took into consideration the quadruple helix. So we take into consideration citizens, industry, career science, and policymakers. We put everyone into a room, and we analyzed a bit these SPIs. So each country, actually, the best way we found to do it was to have Portugal was focused into science, into researchers. Then we had Italy that was focused into citizens. Spain were focused in the industry, and in that also included the journalists. And we had Belgium with the policymakers that also had a European perspective. So the 3 labs were held in person, and the ones in Italy, in Spain, and in Portugal. And the Belgium one was online because we wanted to bring also key actors from the European scenario. Then we had some main outcomes and insights. We took into consideration all of the methodology that was co-created by the partners and the SICDOT. So what we did is we produced 6 types of templates. And this was very important because we had to take into consideration all of the local languages, all of the local considerations. So first, we would produce them in English, then each part would translate into the local language, then we had to translate back again into English. It was a long process, but it was very interesting to see how having so many templates and so many guidelines helped into the organization of these workshops. We had 100 participants over the 8 workshops. And then one point that is also very important to share is about the cascade effect. Ellie mentioned a little bit in the beginning. We had, so each engagement workshop and each lab would happen after a few weeks in each country, because this would allow us to take a look back and see, okay, what actually worked in this workshop? What can we improve? So we would evaluate after every workshop. We would have a mutual learning session. So we would share between the consortium what could be improved. And this one, a very interesting example is that in Portugal, in the engagement workshops, after all of these tips that Michael gave, one of the things that we also saw is that we started in Italy, then we did in Belgium, then in Spain, and the last one was Portugal. And what happened? We realized that every time when we talk about SPIs, can be sometimes a bit theoretical. So we have the definition of standards and principles could be a bit harder for someone who was in a workshop for, I don't know, 2 hours sometimes to discuss about it. So depending on the workshop, we did a few changes. And with Portugal, what we did is they started with the same introduction that we had in other workshops, but then by the end, they realized that we could give an example. Okay, when we talk about SPI, what this actually means. So they didn't need to go too much into the definition of what is a standard or what is a principle, but they shared that when you think about measuring tape, for example, accuracy would be the principle. Then to measure using the same instrument, known length, could be the standard. And the measure, that could be in centimeters, for example, itself, would be the indicator. And this allowed people to think a bit better, to think about deeper about all of the SPIs that they had later to co-create or to redefine. So this was a good example that the cascade effect actually worked, because this means that the workshop that we had in Italy, that was the first one, in Portugal was very, very different. Like we kept a few things, but we improved a lot by the end. We also had a very positive feedback from the participants, so we actually saw communities being created. So we had a diversity of participants. We have quantitative info about the perception. There are people that are very interested in keeping in touch with the project over the years, because we did this in 2022, and people that are still here with us in contact with the project, and later on also be in Coalesce, that will be further explained. And I would like to just quickly finishing saying that the power of co-creation. So co-creation for us in ENJOI and Science for Change is something very, very important. And we think that the collaborative local and international partnerships that we were able to establish in ENJOI actually it was key to improve the science communication and journalism to be more trustful, more consistent, more reliable, and more useful. So our key message is that co-creation is really, really powerful, and we are really proud of the result because it really summarizes and includes a lot of different views. It's a very, very bottom-up result. So thank you so much. Ellie.
Thank you, Karina. This was, again, I think very useful to go a little bit more into details of how we actually decline the meaning of engagement and co-creation. It's a word that we have been used a lot, as you say. It's correct to give a little bit more substance to that. So we already mentioned in the overview that we also ask the participants to give us ideas for innovative tools that could be useful for their needs. So either they can use them to produce contents or to actually interpret somehow science communications. So now I'll give the floor to Esther Marin from F-Ciencias ED or ID. I never pronounce it correctly, but she will say more about that. So it's our Portuguese partner, and the focus of Esther's talk will be really on how we proceeded in prototyping these innovative tools. Esther.
Yeah, this is too quick. Okay. So thank you very much. As Ellie introduced me, Mr. Marin, I work with Cristina Luis and Inés Navallas, who are also part of the team. We are from Ciências AD. This is to say that we are part of the University of Lisbon. We are researchers there. And I'm very happy to show you our work, how we turn some of the findings of the project in these tools, in these innovative and practical tools directed to multiple target users. Our goal with these tools was to try to reply to the needs and the demands of information and resources that both communication professionals but also stakeholders have to improve their practices and also to support the creation and the recognition of science communication activities. As has been already explained by my colleagues, by Michael and Karina, we follow a co-creation process in the project to develop this set of SPIs that has been presented by Michele, and we also use a similar approach to develop these tools. And for us, it was very clear from the beginning the need to integrate into these tools the views of the users, these final end users that would be the ones that should benefit from these tools from early beginning. And we did this we ensured this by involving the participants of our engagement workshops and labs in the design of these tools. Okay, so what we did was we used an approach inspired by design thinking methodologies, design thinking and user-centered design methodologies, in which the participants of our engagement workshops and labs worked together to define and ideate a series of tools to address two main challenges. The first one was to facilitate the uptake of the SPIs by communication professionals, and the second was to support specific stakeholders in their communication actions. So this resulted in 24 ideas, from which we prototyped 8. So what we did was, based on the tools that our participants envisioned in these workshops, we produced these 8 prototypes that were tested and evaluated by external end users. That means we sent and we shared these prototypes with people, with external potential real users, to give us feedback, to say how we could improve these tools to make them really useful for them. So we collect this feedback mainly through interviews and surveys. We analyze all the results, and we integrated these inputs into a second round of prototypes in which we try to integrate, as I said, as much as possible all this input to make them real useful for the stakeholders, for these end users. And with this process, we aim to adapt our tools to their needs and to their expectations. Okay, so in the next slides, wait, not that much. Oh my God, super sensitive thing. Yeah, okay, stop here, no? Oh, come on. This will be a mess, this presentation, I'm sorry. Okay, so in the next slides, I'm going to show you 4 of these 8 prototypes. Stop here. Okay, which I said they are directed to communication professionals, so this is to journalists, science communicators, and other content producers. We produce these tools in 4 languages, so we have tools in Italian, in Portuguese, in Spanish, and in English. As you will see, some of them are pretty innovative. All of them have been co-created by the different agents involved in all this process. All of them try to reply to these needs of the final users, and they are diverse in their formats and their goals. Okay, so now focusing on the tools directed to communication professionals. Come on. Well, they share a common goal, all of them, which is to support communication professionals. I cannot go back to that slide, but don't worry, it's fine. Let's try once more. Yeah, stop here, yeah. So the goal of these tools, it's a common goal, which is to support the communication professionals in the development of their work by providing them with resources that can facilitate their practices. And here we have 5 prototypes. These are the ones that we have already produced. We have a checklist of the ENJOI SPIs, so something that the people involved in these workshops something that they asked us was to produce something like a checklist, a more practical thing to put into practice is the SPIs that Michele was explaining. Then we have a guide of good practices and inspiring examples of good scientific journalism. Then we also have this online platform called ENJOI, which aims to support journalists to identify shortcomings in their text and provide suggestions for their improvement based on our SPIs. Then we have this online platform which tries to explain how research articles are structured and to highlight the most relevant information for journalists. In this way, we try to increase science literacy of journalists. And finally, we have this online questionnaire to collect direct feedback from audiences, in this case, from magazine readers. So of these 5, I will present you 2 of them. The Guide of Good Practices, as I said, this was a demand made by several stakeholders, several participants involved in our engagement workshops. They wanted a guide that shows in a very practical and condensed way our SPIs. And also they ask us for good practices, inspiring examples that they can read to improve their work, their practices. If you scan this QR code, I invite you to scan and to check on your mobile phones this tool. It's already available online, so you can access it. I will try. I'm not sure if someone there can just click. I have a mouse. Oh my God, I have a mouse. Good. This would be much easier. I hope so. Well, let's try to open this. I'm not sure if I can do it like this. Wait, not that much. Yeah, this one. Okay. So as I said, this is already available online. So here we have like a kind of interactive handbook where you will find the most relevant findings of the project. So here we have the ENJOI Manifesto, here we have the SPIs. As I said, they are collected, put here in a more practical way. And we have also inspiring examples from the 3 southern European countries of the project. So we have examples from Italy, from Portugal, and from Spain. So you can navigate. This makes a lot of noise. You can navigate the guide. It's really nice. And here we have the manifesto that has been already explained by Michele. Lot of noise. And here we have the standard, our principles, standards, and yeah, I'm not sure if now the microphone is working. Should I stop or can I continue? Can I continue? Okay. So here you have the definitions of what are the standards, the principles, and the indicators. And here we have, in a more condensed and practical way, so this try to facilitate the work of the journalists, all these SPIs. And here we have the checklist of the indicators. So this would make. Yeah. Okay, I will continue. So here you have the checklist of the SPIs. See, now it's working. Okay, and here I will show you very briefly this. So we have selected examples, selected stories from Italian media, Portuguese media, and Spanish media. And here you see how these good examples include these SPIs. So if I can go back to my presentation. Yeah. So it would be much more easy if you scan the QR code and you do it by yourself. And this is really nice. I really invite you to take a look at these stories because they are nice stories of scientific journalism. Well, the other tool that I would like to show you is this one. It's called ENJOI. So this was named in this way by the participants involved in the Spanish lab. And the goal of this tool, as I said, is to identify shortcomings in text and provide suggestions on how to improve the work of journalists based on our SPIs. So again, if you scan this QR code, this tool is also available. It's still a prototype. It's not a working tool. It's not functional because this will require some development to work. But you will see what is the goal of this tool. Now, if I can just access here. Okay, so this is ENJOI, this one is in Spanish. And if we click in the system, here explains how this tool works. And here we have a brief description of the SPIs. Here we have the entire list of SPIs that has been shown by Michele. Some reasons for using ENJOI, this tool. I will go directly to the example so you can see how this would work in a real tool. So in this section that it's try me, imagine that you are a journalist, you want to double check if your text is following or not our SPIs. So this would replace in a way the checklist. So this manual thing, instead of doing you manually this double checking, this would do it for you. So you would paste here your text and you will ask the system to revise it. And the system will return this outcome. So it will say which parts of the text can be improved based on our SPIs. So in this example, here we have two paragraphs, one in red, the other one in orange. So in red, we have like a kind of alert, a pop-up saying something is wrong. So one of the SPIs is not included. In this case, the example says that you should revise your sources because it seems that you are only including one source of information. So in this way, the system would alert this journalist to take a look at what sources he or she is using in their work and would recommend to use more, to include more diversity of the sources, in this way to comply with the SPIs. And the other recommendation is to clarify to help the audience which kind of sources you are using, so to provide some context. And this is how this would work. We have also some additional resources at the end. And now moving this way maybe. Yeah, to the tools directed to other target groups, and here we have academics. We have also policymakers and teachers and students. For these tools, they have 3 different goals, because we have 3 different audiences here, 3 different groups of final users. In this case, we want to support the people who want to improve the way they communicate science. We have a tool for that. Then we have another tool to foster science communication actions in research, and another to promote science education, on science communication. These 3 includes this interactive guide to communicate science. This one is directed to researchers. Then we have a dialogue tool. This one is mainly addressed to policymakers, but also to researchers. I will show you these 2. And then we have a toolkit to promote education on science communication directed to teachers and their students. So regarding the interactive guide to communicate science, this idea emerged in the Portuguese lab, so in which researchers were involved. So they asked us for a tool that helped them to create communication strategies directed to specific target audiences. And we did this. We tried to condense in a platform this request. Again, this is already available online. You can scan the code and you can access it. It is a working prototype, although this is a beta version, so it can be improved. We can include more content, and we will hope to do it in the future. So again, if we can just enter here, I will show you very briefly how this works. So this one is in Portuguese. So we enter the guide, and here explains how this works. And here we will use an example to show you the functionality. So you imagine you are a researcher and you want to communicate to your research, but you have no idea how to do it. So the first thing that this tool gives you is, well, it's as the user, who is your audience. So you need to select to decide to whom you want to address these communication strategies. So imagine that you want to do something for adults, addressed to adults, so you click here. And then the system shows you 4 different communication objectives. So you know that you want to involve adults into something. We have included only 4 examples here. Of course, there are many other options, but just to exemplify the potentiality of this tool, we can choose this one. It's to promote participation in my research. So I want to involve adults in my research. How can I do that? And then the system suggests 4 possible formats. And you can do this. In this case, let's try the creation of a citizen science project as a way to reach adults and to involve them in your research. There are other formats as well available in the system, but let's choose this one. and the system provides you with some tips, useful tips, to conduct this specific action, to address this communication action to your specific audience to reach a specific goal. And then at the end, we have also different resources available. This one about citizen science, in which the user can expand their knowledge and also check what other examples are there. And this was, okay. I haven't mentioned this before, but all these tools, as I said at the beginning, have been tested by end users. So this one by researchers and the previous one, ENJOI, by journalists and communicators. These two receive very good feedback. So these two are tools that they can be really used by these users, but these stakeholders. So hopefully we will be able to develop them in the future. Okay, and yeah, the next and last one, it's this dialogue tool. This one is addressed to policymakers, as I said, and this idea emerged from the lab in Belgium. So the idea of this tool is to foster the discussion about the lack or limited recognition of science communication activities in the careers of researchers. When the research is evaluated, many cases in many countries, science communications activities are not recognized enough. So researchers ask us, policymakers and researchers realize that would be good to have a discussion on how to overcome this problem and to find some solutions to address these barriers to tackle this issue. Interestingly, we were involved in another project in Newsera in which we were conducting some workshops with people, with stakeholders from Portuguese universities, and we were discussing exactly this, how to solve this problem, how to talk about the barriers and not anymore about the problem. So we realized that a roadmap of solutions could be a useful tool to promote the discussion, involving policymakers, involving the researchers in this conversation. So this is a roadmap with possible solutions to address this issue at national or at the European level. These are not the only solution possible, so the goal of this is to discuss in a workshops or in a focus group what can we be done by different institutions to address this issue, to value science communications activities in the academic curriculum, so in the careers of researchers and academics. And our next steps include the dissemination of all these tools in the observatory that has been already explained by Marco. So our goal is to make them fully available to the community, openly available. Some of them are not yet fully developed, so our goal is to develop them, also adapt them to local context and translate them into different languages. And that's all. I hope you have liked the tools and you think that they are useful, and yeah, thank you.
Wow, sorry. No, it's fine. Thank you, Esther, also for enduring the difficulties with this remote control. Okay, so we're almost at the end of our presentation of what we did in these 3 years, and I think it's really important also to see which recommendation arise from the work we have been doing. And then in the second part of the afternoon, I already anticipate we will be more actively involving you. Michael is already doing like that because that's the co-creation part, and then we will be a little bit more active, asking for your feedback and your contributions so that we can actually, even in this opportunity, this occasion, bring together your ideas and see what we will bring forward from the project. But before then, I want to share with you the recommendation that we are setting in different chapters for the policymakers. So the recommendation we're going to condense in our policy brief. I have to say that we already presented them. We didn't mention until now, but we had a policy event on October 4th in Brussels, hosted by Sticky Dot and organized by our consortium together. But the thing was that in that case, we came with our recommendation, and then we also asked for their feedback, for the people who were there. There were people from the REA, from the European Commission, from ERC, JRC, and so on. So different type of institutions. And it was interesting that they also gave a lot of feedback in an active session. So we managed to include some of those contributions into the recommendation I'm going to show you now. The recommendation have been organized in different chapters because at the end, the same chapter that we've seen in the standard principle indicators and in the different phases of the project. But I will go a little bit more in detail of each one because I think that continuing the discourse that Michele had started, here we find some of the novelties as well that come out from the project. So the first set of recommendations regards the issue of engagement, inclusion, and diversity. It was said by many participants at our different sessions, the engagement workshop and the labs, that diversity is the best peaceful weapon against polarization and discrimination. We know that there is no magic tool to fight misinformation or to contrast the problem of misinformation, but certainly having a very broad perspective, very broad number of voices, it's a good way to look at polarization and trying to manage it and to contrast it. So there are 6 key supporting actions that we recommend that should be implemented by, for example, the new grant scheme to support communication initiatives that have these kind of characteristics. I won't go into each one of them. You find all of them anyway in the policy brief, but just to give a few examples, I think it's very important to raise the issue that we should foster projects that are based on requests from diverse communities and cultures, so to be more responsive to the needs of our audiences and the people who are living in the European region. Apply diversity as a guiding principle. We said that already. It's true in communication, should be true also in the policy making, and so in the way we actually build the grants. Implemented the engagement strategy in the whole life cycle of information. One thing that came out, it's quite a new approach, of course, in science communication. It's not new in other domains. It's the issue of adopting the lens of intersectionality. So basically being very aware of the fact that there are multiple problems and barriers that actually interact with each other. And for many people, that means that the access to information is strongly prevented or at least made much more difficult. So we think that intersectionality should become much more discussed even within the domain of science communication. As I said, it's not new in other environments and in other fields, but it's quite new in our field and it's still not really common practice. Of course, this is also quite new. It has been raised also recently at a couple of conferences on science communication, the fact of recognize our colonial past and be very aware of the fact that we are still quite post-colonial in our attitude towards the rest of the world. So it's really important to deal with the impact of the colonization on scientific ecosystem and also being aware that we still adopt that kind of view very often, even if we are not always aware of that. So it's really important to get this project that might actually deal with this issue. Let's see if I manage to go. Yes. Okay. The next set of recommendations regards the domain of open science, open access. Again, it has been said, it should be very important to keep transparency and accessibility of scientific data throughout the entire process of science communication. We also think that it would be important to make that as a statement, a clear statement, even when we are looking into grant scheme, for example, or funding policies. So making sure that the open data are the rule for every institution. We know very well that it's not the case, and still very far from being the case, even if it is recommended already in many situations. Converting the entire science communication process into a fully open and transparent one. Again, science communication has a lot to do also with the issue of conflict of interest, for example. So again, learning from other type of domains, for example, that of investigative journalism, we know that there are a number of issues that should be exposed, should be made much more clear. And very often in the traditional science communication field, we don't really look into that. So we need to be more aware of these possibilities and obviously very focus a lot of our effort and resources on that. one way, it's not obviously the only solution, but it's really adopting a code of transparency in all platform and media. Again, it's something we learned from other fields. Like in investigative journalism, particularly in the independent sector, so independent media, this is really a key rule. The fact that the media should always have a transparency code. And this is not the rule in many science communication media outlets, but also in many science communication websites. And I think it's really, we all think it's really important. As a consortium, we came to that point. A lot of interest was raised during the policy event in Brussels about the issue of training and capacity building. This was probably the topic that raised more feedback and more interest, because obviously we all recognize the fact that we really need to have high-quality science communication, science journalism, but we need journalists to understand science as well. So it's not only, it is really true that we need to apply to science communication the great deontology or the basic rule of good journalism, but we also need to bring more science into the journalism environment and practice, because very often, especially when we're dealing with this kind of frontline crisis like the pandemics or the environmental crisis, to have journalists who do not understand the scientific concept and also the way science works makes everything more difficult. So we think there should be much more hybridization between the two fields. There should be special attention to train journalists discussing and assessing the emerging role of AI tools. This is interesting because it came out from some labs and some engagement workshop. We didn't have a specific recommendation for that in our previous work, but it came out strongly during our policy event in Brussels. This is also showing that, of course, there is much more interest, and also somehow people are more worried now about the fact that the generative AI tools might be substituting journalists or taking the place of journalists. There is all of this kind of discussion, and we are quite interested in seeing how to bring the discussion not so much on the level of substitution, but on the level of how to integrate the tools into our common practice and how to make sure that journalists can actually learn how to use these tools and to make their practice stronger. And then one interesting input that came from the policy event, and I find that particularly useful to put it back into our recommendation, is that science journalists should always be involved in defining the funding grant schemes. Because of course it's very difficult that the funding grant schemes somehow reflect or respond to the needs of the community of science journalists and science communicators if these kind of people are not included in the process of defining the grant scheme. So it was interesting. This came out from some people sitting at the ERC or at the EU Commission, and I think it's a very crucial recommendation. Okay? So our major recommendation is science journalists should be included in every journalism school. We all know, especially all of us who teach in journalism school, that the general journalism school do not have any focus on science. And it's really important to start bringing that into the general training. Institutions should employ trained science communicators, because that's another thing that was very much learned after the pandemic. Lots of institutions have trained communicators or trained journalists, but without any capability to actually deal with the way science is produced and validated, particularly the validation part. We obviously look forward to have more lifelong high-quality training for journalists. The fact of seeing a recognition of the value of communication in scientist career advancement, that was also mentioned during the research on science-media relationship. Lots of scientists still complain correctly about the fact that if they do put a lot of time and effort in science communication and in dealing with the public, that particular activity is not necessarily recognized for their career advancement. So it's really somehow they do for passion or free interest, but they are not recognized in that. So that's a very important thing that we keep highlighting. During the policy event, we presented one particular project, which is an ERC project. That is one unique type of project. It's the first time we have something like that. It's a scheme to have 40 in-residence fellowship in different European and broader European region institutions and university. There are some in residence fellowship. In fact, I can mention Michele has enjoyed one of them in the past. So some institutions are doing that. Particularly, for example, Germany is very strong in promoting this kind of activity, but it's still not common practice. And actually, many institutions are not even organized to host a science journalist or a journalist. And it's really important that we start seeing this kind of scheme as a regular practice. And then, of course, another point we think it's very important is fostering more collaborative long-term projects between scientists and journalists, especially when we go into the investigative field. Science can be extremely important to validate the methodology and to contribute to the setting up of a sound methodology. And tomorrow morning, we're going to hear much more about that with some very concrete example. Okay, there. Now, another chapter, let's say, of recommendation is that regarding local communities. This is another extremely important point because very often we have local communities which are small, underserved or neglected, and we have been discussing a lot about the fact that when you look at a smaller regional community or a smaller media, for example, adopting the same type of indicators that you use for a bigger media, it's absolutely not correct. It doesn't give the value of that particular kind of work. We need to have different type of indicators, qualitative indicators that might be extremely useful. Also to think in a different way to scaling and replicability, because of course scaling, it's very diverse if you're dealing with a big media or if you're dealing with a small local media. But definitely local journalism is struggling and needs more support. Okay, all of these recommendations will be published in an ENJOI policy brief. Number 2, because we already have one on the website. It's an older, like an initial policy brief. So the new recommendation will be condensed into a new policy brief that will be prepared in the next few weeks and be published on the website. Now, the last few things I want to say before passing over the microphone to Michael for the second part of interactive exercise is we worked a lot on the communication of this project, and we worked to try to find different channels and different ways to keep the communication ongoing, also beyond the closure of the project. So, of course, the ENJOI website is a good place where you can find all of the materials that we've been presenting today, and we recommend you visit that. But, let's see if I can do it. Okay. From the beginning, we adopted an open science approach. So all of our results and all the public deliverables are also published in a Zenodo community. And we strongly encourage all of you to use the Zenodo community to actually look through the deliverables and the product, the reports, and the fact sheets that we've been producing. It's actually interesting, I've been looking to the numbers in these days, that there are lots of people going into this community that do not belong to our niche environment, and I think it's a very good way to get in touch and to enter in connection also with a broader community. Of course, on Zenodo we have more a sort of research community of practice, but it's really important that we keep these two communities interacting. And then, okay, so then the observatory, it's been mentioned already a few times, so I won't go too much into detail, but the observatory will stay and will have a future in the next few years. We have also produced a newsletter. The newsletter also will stay, so please subscribe and make sure that this newsletter grows. We try to make it useful not only talking about the project, but really having this sort of broad view that is the same reflected in the observatory. So lots of interesting news for the environmental science communicators are, and opportunities for training, opportunities for tools are included in the newsletter. And of course, we have 2 channels of social media. Today we have Raul and Miriam from SSSA have been strongly working for all of the 3 years in setting up our social media activity. The Twitter, now X, unfortunately, channel has more than 1,000. Actually, we're almost 1,200 followers. And then we also have a LinkedIn profile. So those are also 2 good ways to keep in touch with us. Oh, too fast. Okay. This, just because we mentioned that, but we didn't really show the logos of the 6 partners. I want to say one thing about the ENJOI Consortium, because it's very particular. We will update the photo after our picture tonight, but this photo was taken in Barcelona last November. And this consortium is really particular in that it's not very or only academic. Other SWOFS projects have been, so Science Sweden for Society project in the same program, are more strongly academic. ENJOI is a project where we have 3 SMEs or companies, startups as you want to say. Formicablu, that's a science communication agency based in Bologna, Science for Change based in Barcelona, and Sticky Dot in Brussels, doing a lot of work on participatory methodology, on citizens engagement. Then we have the Catalan Association of Science Communication, so practitioners. That also was extremely interesting to have that kind of contribution. The University of Twente and the University of Lisbon with the FD Ciencias, which is a foundation, again, very much at the interface between the academic environment and the more entrepreneurial and active one. So I do think it's really interesting that this project, we've been told also that this project was actually approved with the challenge of having a more specific focus on practice than on the academic research, although it is a research project. We also keep thinking that although we don't look very diverse, we are a very diverse group of people, and I think there are lots of perspectives taken into this project that come, okay, that's fine. This is going to be the little game of the day. Okay, as I said, later we will be discussing more about the future of the observatory and the future of our work in the Collage project, but now I will pass the microphone to Michael for the next session, which is going to be a more practical one. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks so much, Ellie. Nice to be back. Oh, let's give this a try. So, of course, this wouldn't be an ENJOI event without a participatory element. So you didn't think you were going to get away without writing some post-its and putting some sticky dots on your prioritized material. Of course, it's going to happen. But first, I have some information for you, and that is that you thought this was a stage. It's not a stage. Any ideas what this might be? Table? No, it's not a table. Sorry? Dance floor, maybe later. We'll see. I saw the social agenda. There's some possibilities there. Yes, that's right. It is, in fact, a data visualization tool. Well guessed. So, yes, I'm just missing my labels for my axis and my data points. So I have to let you know that, okay, where's the second one? You are my data points for this particular data visualization. So we have, at each end of the spectrum, agree at this end, disagree at this end. I think you know what's coming, right? Oh, okay, it's going fast. I have a question for you, and I would like you to vote with your feet, so please stand up. Everyone, yeah, put the laptops down. Sorry to stop tweeting a moment. And come and join me on the stage to show where you would like to position yourself in terms of your answer. Disagree or agree? Come closer, come closer. Let's get my question back. I love the weather today. Agree? Disagree? All right. Okay, mostly fans of the weather, not so impressed?
No, I would prefer a little more sun.
Okay, yeah. You see, and really from the Portuguese? Okay, yeah, the Portuguese and Spanish contingent, not so impressed. Let's try another one. Italian food is the best? Oh, careful, what? Okay. This is the, yeah, of course. This is a spectrum, so you can, yeah, anywhere you like. Yeah. Okay, so. Well, so You're hoping to be invited back to Bologna?
Yeah, and bring back some tortellinis.
Tortellini, okay, nice, yeah, understandable. Not super convinced, Joanna?
Yeah, I like Asian, Portuguese, Brazilian.
Yeah, there's a few options, and okay. And here I'm really curious. What's your preference?
I actually would have said the Middle East, but she's expecting me to say Sardinia because I'm from Sardinia.
Okay, it's specific. All right, thanks very much for sharing. Okay, we're warming up a bit. I want to know where you live. I live far from Bologna. Agree? Disagree? Somewhere in the middle? Who's the most far? Who's the... Okay. You are the least far. Where do you live?
I live in Bologna.
In the center of Bologna?
Yes.
Okay, so you are definitely the closest. And, yeah, who's... Francesca on the move to Rome. Rome is here. Yeah. And our furthest, yeah, Portugal.
I was saying that these people took the plane to be here, and they consider to be living near or far. I mean,
It's far. Yeah. Let's face it, it's a long way. My last question. I'm a science. Hoppa. Let's go back. Here we go, little by little. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's hope it stays. All right, this is my last one. I'm a science communicator. Are you a science communicator? Agree? Disagree? So, we're a diverse group, right? Also in terms of location, but also in terms of our role. You are definitely a science communicator. What do you do?
I am a journalist. I don't think it's the same.
Okay, and what kind of journalism?
Scientific journalist.
Wow, there you go. But print or
no,
broadcast?
digital media. Digital media.
Okay. Fantastic, yeah. So, okay, no doubt in your mind, but some of you are hesitating. You have mixed identities. How do you define your role?
Well, I started as a researcher, now I'm a journalist, I'm a bit of a hybrid person.
A bit of everything. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much to my data points. You can, okay, as my data visualization falls apart, you can sit back down. Great job. So, in just a moment, you're going to receive two things. You're going to receive, of course, a Post-it note, and you're going to receive a thick marker pen. We've heard a lot about what's come out of ENJOI. We've heard about the SPIs. We've heard about the policy proposals, the policy outcomes. We've heard about the observatory, about the tools, about everything that's been set up and is happening around the ENJOI community. My question for you is, what will you take from the ENJOI project? You can think about what inspired you the most. Was there something someone said here today that will really stay with you, something you think is really important and we mustn't forget? What will you use? Think about Marco's questions in his presentation earlier about the observatory. How do we take the outcomes of ENJOI and make sure that they live on through Coalesce, but also how else? What will you use? What will you take from this? What needs to happen next? Yeah, how do you see the future for the outcomes for ENJOI? I want you, I'm going to give you two sticky notes. So if you have two take-home messages, you can write two. I want you to use the thick marker pens and write nice and large so that we can read it. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes. So I'm coming around with the Post-it notes. Yeah, just two each, I'm afraid. Fantastic, thanks. So they're already in twos. That's great, yep. I'll bring the pens. Thanks, Reggie. So one take-home message per post-it. Write nice and large, please. Yeah. Thank you. Got it. Oh, you can use this, it's bigger. Yeah. Some pens. Do you want another? No problem. Yeah, you can write two. If you have two take-home messages, if you have more, ask for another piece of paper, but one message per sticky note. Ten more seconds. All right, it's time to talk. I want to first give you 5 minutes to talk among yourselves, but not with your colleague sitting next to you. I would like you to take your post-its, stand up, find somebody you don't know or that you don't know so well, mix up a bit, and you have 5 minutes to talk to them. Discuss your messages. Stand up. Yeah. So you can, maybe one of these three you can steal. Marzia, do you want to pair up? Oof. Thanks, Ali. I'll leave it here, I think it's good. Yeah.
You know, maybe you can say something for the people who are streaming, looking the streaming, that we're only at this for bear with us.
Yeah. Just to say as well, if you're joining us online, don't hesitate to type in the chat what you will take from the ENJOI Final Event, and we'll hear from everyone else in just a moment. Yeah, perfect.
I love this activity.
Yeah,
You're so good.
I mean, it always works. Two more minutes. 2 minutes left. Can I take these? No.
Thank you.
Can I steal these? Perfect, thank
I
you.
had just one.
That's great. No problem, fantastic. Can I steal your, can I collect these? Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks. Perfect. Can I steal these? Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you. It's great. Thanks. Thank you. No. Yeah, randomly. Thank you. That's great. Thanks. Fantastic. Thank you. Can I steal these? Thank you. Yeah, would be great. Thanks. I steal these. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. Fantastic. That's sorry. Great. Is everything perfect? If you could give these out, it'd be great. Thanks. Thank you. Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Super nice. Thank you. Okay, time is up. It's time to explore everybody's take-home messages. In a moment, so I've collected the Post-its. They're on 2 tables here and here. And so you can circulate and read everybody's messages, but you will have received 3 little sticky dots. Can you hold them up if you've got them? Yes. All right. Still some sticky dots needed over here. They're on their way. I would like you, if you see a message that you think, yes, this is the one, this is really what's at the heart of ENJOI, this I would like to discuss some more, you can give it a sticky dot. Maybe you see 3 messages and you want to give 1, 2, and 3. Or maybe there's one message where you're like, yeah, all on this, 2 on this, 1 on this, but you only have 3 maximum, and everybody has the same. I don't want to see anybody selling their sticky dots for a louder voice, okay? With no lobbying. You can vote for yourself. We won't judge if you vote for your own message. So you have 5 minutes. Take your time to read and add sticky dots. Who's going to place the first dot? There you go. It's all marketing. It's okay to finish early, right? When you've put your 3 dots down, you can take a seat. All right, almost there. Fantastic. Would you give me a hand putting the posters up? We'll put them. Let's see, we can put them at a bit of an angle. It's okay. So, yeah, if we just pick out the highest voted. So thank you very much for all your contributions. I'm very curious to see what's come out. Already, I can see a huge mix of outcomes, and I really appreciate that you've shared not only the broader messages, but also some really specific ways in which you're going to use the outcomes from ENJOI. So I noticed, for example, the importance of including learnings from evaluation into science communication projects in the future. Some with really a lot. Yeah, and I also hear the voices of experience here. So I haven't worked in science journalism for 10 years, but it's hard to see there are still so many unfaced challenges. So the work that we've got ahead, there's really a lot. Looking for this one. Some with a lot of votes. Let's start with the ones that have the highest number of votes. So I think this one here on inclusion with 9 votes. So here, this person has highlighted the need for more and more connection between different communities, academia and media. Whose was this? Marco. So yeah. Yeah, what are the chances? So, inclusion, why is this such a key point for you?
We said that after this panorama we had today, that there is a lot of variety in approaches, in backgrounds, and also in the definition on what innovation, for example, or of outstanding is. And so the more variety we have in including different perspectives from different communities, from different backgrounds, I think the more we enrich the practice of journalism and science communication, and the less we are facing the problem of leaving someone out, which is one of the problems that we saw clearly during the pandemic with the communication of the institution and also the journalistic communication.
That's it. So definitely diversity as a richness that we, our results were stronger because of the inclusive approach we took.
Yes, and also I think that that also helps to highlight the possibility that someone that normally would be excluded can be recognized as an example for someone else to be inspired and say, okay, I can do that too, I can be included too. And this is something that normally we tend to forget, because we think of a community of science journalists as a very homogeneous community. And not only we think of the community in this way, but also we think of the audiences this way. And we forget that from time to time, we are part also of the communities, of the audiences.
And the more diverse we are as a community, the better we can serve our audiences. A lot of you voted for this one. Anybody with any particular thoughts on inclusion and diversity as at the core of ENJOI? Who voted for this? Yeah, Anouk, I'll pick on you. Why inclusion is such an important factor?
So I think I wrote down something very similar, and it also received a lot of sticky dots. So I think we're all on the same page. But for me, inclusion has already been a core part of the ENJOI project, especially through the engagement workshops and the labs. And I think for us as partners in the project, it's been very visible how much this has contributed to improving the SPIs and the manifesto, and also all the other things. And I also think, indeed, we can take this much further, also talking about and looking back on the presentations where things like intersectionality and decolonization of science and science communication were mentioned as well.
That's it. I think we see how ENJOI has also been shaped by society. I mean, before, when we started ENJOI, the Black Lives Matter movement hadn't taken place. This was mid-COVID when we started to see how vulnerable groups were affected differently under the pandemic. So yeah, this has really come to the fore, and it's great to see it so well reflected in the policy outcomes. Thanks so much. I wanted to come back to some of the other highest voted. Yeah. Maybe this is you, Anouka. Involving diverse stakeholders is key. What about this one? So involving citizens in defining what's good for them works. People are not just passive media users. Whose was this? Matt's. Yeah, what is it about co-creation that works so well?
Yeah, there is always this kind of misconception, no, that citizens are just, especially when it comes to media, that they are just very passive. I mean, everything that is given to them, they will read or watch or not really. So I thought that this is really amazing. We need more and more examples that it's not the case. And I think that it's really great to see that citizens actually want to contribute to this and can bring in valuable views to what can turn what they read or what they look at as something they can trust.
That's it. So not only involving them in co-creation processes, but also, yeah, as we saw from ENJOI, the importance of dialogue, of citizen science, of real science engagement, where it's not only one-way traffic on information. Absolutely. Any other thoughts on this topic of citizen engagement and the importance of interaction? I'm hoping for some interaction. Yeah, who voted for this one? Out of interest. Oh, now you don't admit it because you know I'm going to come and ask. No worries, we can pick on another. So we talked about diversity. What about this one? Innovation must have a philosophical and ethical level. Technology isn't enough. Ooh, whose was this? Yeah, okay, fantastic. Could you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sofia. I'm a journalist from Portugal. Yes, I have the feeling that we as journalists, we are freaking out with technology and artificial intelligence, and we are losing what makes us different, that is being mediators between people, and do interviews and approach them with ethical standards. It's it.
Yeah, so there's almost an opportunity here with the rise of AI that we set ourselves apart as science communicators with this ethical lens.
Sorry, I didn't understand you.
Yeah, that as AI is on the rise, that for us as science communicators, we will always have an important role as the kind of the humans in the process.
Yes, yeah. I think so. So I think that AI will help as a tool, but will not replace people as human beings. Yeah. Well, I hope so. Otherwise, we are lost.
Fantastic, and I'm sure we will hear more tomorrow about how this is represented in your work as a science journalist. Thanks very much. Anyone else like to come back on this topic of the importance of ethics? Yeah, Anna.
Maybe that also relates to diversity, because if you put in different perspectives, societal and technical perspective, but also you get a more diverse perspective on the developments or on the topic at hand, and that's really, really important, I guess, that nuance.
Yeah, no voices left behind in the process. Absolutely, our ethical responsibility as science communicators. I want to pick at least one more with the most votes. Sorry? Here. Yeah, on co-creation, this we've talked a little bit about. I'm just going to pick out one more that's a little bit different, because yeah, a few of these, it's a little bit repeated. Okay, what about this one on political change? This, I think, was you, was it not your, was this yours on political change? Yeah. What is the political change you would like to see out of ENJOI?
Maybe more research works on science communication. I mean, more projects, more, but at the same time, more connection with stakeholders, because, I mean, we are doing research, but maybe sometimes it's lost the connection between us and political and other stakeholders. And so maybe if they fund this research, maybe they are willing to be more prompt to science communication. I mean, maybe maybe, let's hope.
We can hope. So getting the policymakers on board early.
Yeah,
so that,
I do think that integrate all policymakers and all stakeholders would be beneficial for science communication. Even in our projects, in science communication projects and research and innovation things, maybe, I mean, I do think that political change is a strong, it is important for us to continue doing research and to improve science communication, so I think that's it.
Fantastic, thanks so much. Yeah, I think in our co-creation workshops, working with the policymakers, this was absolutely clear that for them being part of the ENJOI process, this shaped their own opinions and their own feelings about how science communication should be supported through policy. So yeah, I totally agree. Anyone else on this, the role of policy and how we can make this change happen? Actually, maybe it's time to hand over to talk about how we can see this change happening both at political level, but also continuing from a grassroots level. I will hand over to you, Ellie, first of all, to talk about what's next and the next steps. Thanks very much to all of you for your participation. We will keep this up. Come back and explore. Great job.
Thanks, Michael. So, yes. As we mentioned already, I think 3 or 4 times. Let me see if we can go ahead. Yeah. I know, we have a... Okay, no, here. So that's you. Yeah, we mentioned that already 3 or 4 times. There is this new project that was launched in April that saw the participation of all the 8 coordinators from the 8 Science Sweden for Society project that have been funded in the 3 years between 2020 and 2023. Actually, 2019, 2022, but anyway. These 8 projects, they came together and built a bid for this project that has a very ambitious aim, which is that of building the European competence for science communication. So it's my pleasure to invite Joanna Magalhães to the floor. Joanna is from Science for Change. We already worked together in New Syria, so before ENJOI, which was the project that somehow generated ENJOI. And now it's actually nice to see that together we're going into this new step. Joanna.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you. Yeah, I have seen through everyone's presentation, so I'll try not to do the same, but it probably will happen. So I would just like to, now that I'm seeing everyone face to face, to congratulate all the team for the project, and Elizabeth also for the coordination of this baby sister project of New Zero. I've been hopping up and down the project in a few times, especially in the relations with New Zero, and as being the last project still active from the SOFS 19, I think a lot of the things that you have here shown today are totally emerged with what we are continuing to build, and I'm happy that you even went in some things a little bit a step forward, and we will really try to have this embedded the best way possible. So I know not all the partners from the old projects came together because it was not possible, but we will try to have the best representation and continue to engage everyone in Coalesce. So as Elizabeth was saying, the main goal of the Coalesce project is to establish the European Competence Center for Science Communication. See, I've done it. So why is it relevant now? Some of you already also mentioned it today. We have been living through a lot of different crises, chronic crises related with the climate, acute crises related to the health and different pandemics. We don't know exactly what the next crisis will be or when. And it's true that we live in a time that we have the biggest access to scientific information from all the time, but there's still a gap between what is there in the lab and the citizens in the streets, right? And of course, this undermines policy responses and also amplifies distrust and concern within communities. And in regard to what was just mentioned before by Inês in terms of the policy changes, so during this month, what we did is together with Jason Pridemore from Erasmus University and Rosa Arias, the CEO from Science for Change, we went to talk with different institutions in Europe, with the Commission, with different MPs from the Parliament, with the GRC, with the ERC. We have been talking with different levels in order to bring them together to build the center with us. We cannot do this alone as just partners, as research and practice partners that we're doing. We need also commitment from the institutions so that this is sustained in the future. And it's not only about the center, it's about the community of science, communication and journalism in Europe. So now that we have also a community today, more I know of journalists and from the event tomorrow, I will also encourage you, next year are the elections for the European Parliament. There are a lot of different laws that are connected with research and innovation, where science communication is the key. So we need to make a stand with our representatives from the different countries that we belong to, and science communication has to be on the program. We need to make this happen, and now is a good time for it. So the main goal of the project is to ensure the effectiveness and best practices of science communication and demonstrate the means for rapid mobilization of science communication in times of crisis. We have prioritized 4 areas that, for those who are acquainted with the missions from the European Commission, these are the very much connected, so climate, health and vaccines, AI and digital transformation, and also water, oceans and soils. As Ellie said before, we have already been working for the last 4 years in these 8 different sister projects. We have more than 5,000 people that have been working with us, so we want to continue to invite them. We have activated all this community that we do not want to die. We were just mentioning before in these brief discussions that whenever we organize co-creation and engagement events, people really have the need to network, to come together and to work together. So this is something very special that all of us are creating, and we need to continue to reinforce these connections that we are bringing together. So when we started the project, we already connected to a lot of different institutions that we call our external stakeholder panel. Here are just a few examples, but they are local, regional, national, European, and pan-European network. We also have the acknowledgement that even though this is a European project funded by Europe, we cannot again be forcing a Eurocentric perspective. We need to connect to other voices that are not in Europe. Also, the university alliances will be very important, specifically when we talk about the recognition of science communication in the careers of researchers, but also other platforms or projects. Again, the idea is that we can create synergies, as we have been doing also with the SWOFs 19, and continue to expand our communities. So for those of you who are not that acquainted with the different SWOFs 19 and sister projects from ENJOI, there is an editorial that at this moment is being updated, so it will be published again in the beginning of next year, and where you can see the main outcomes from these projects and the different impacts that they had and how we will continue to build upon the knowledge created. So the Competence Center will operate through a virtual platform, but also we will connect with national and regional hubs. This means that we will have organizations in the different European countries that will be able to represent the platform, adapt the different resources and tools that we will have to local contexts, but also to different languages, including minority languages. So we will again co-create. It's again the word that we will continue to support through what we call our community of practice, but also the different representatives of our stakeholder panel. Here you can see the most typical quadruple helix, but also we included the media, so this is something that came also from New Zealand, but that is also present in ENJOI. So this is our very special quintuple helix that we are continuing to work. Okay. Slow, going back, didn't happen. Okay. Of course, I was not going to do it. And I would like you to pay attention to this, because even though, of course, we realize very much the work of the science journalists, we also think it's very important to pay attention to the generalist journalists, which are the majority that are in our media centers. And when there is a need to be at the forefront of the battle, they will be the ones that will probably be there. Of course, we want to support science journalists to be in the newsroom, but we also need to understand the different conditions and challenges that the media world is facing. So we need also to empower these journalists in order for them to better do their work and support us. So what we will find in the platform. Yes. This is very, now I see, now I see, yes. Okay. So what resources, tools, and services will be there? So first, of course, the main one will be the virtual platform, where we will also try to have a space for mutual learning and networking opportunities. So we already started to have co-creation exercises. So we did one internal with a consortium. We did one just 2 weeks ago in Granada in the main conference of science communication. And we will continue to do this for the platform, but for each of the tools and services that we will have there, we will co-create it with the community. So we will also have a roadmap to support the rapid mobilization of science communication in times of crisis, policy recommendations. One of the biggest and most important aspects will be the Science Communication Academy, in order to build capacity across the European research area, and an accessible library of different toolkits and books, and also a matchmaking tool that internally we call it the scicomm Tinder. And the idea is not only that we connect journalists with researchers, but we want also to encourage the other way back. We want researchers to know who are the best journalists for them and understand how the media works, because there's always a good journalist for your, it's not just, as we always send press releases to everyone and not understanding who is the best one for you, but also to establish a collaboration from the beginning. Of course, that through these co-creation exercises, we have also been asked to have a connection with policymakers or with the projects. For example, during the afternoon, you mentioned about having access to information. But not only to information, we also need to have access to the processes and methodologies. And this is very much still in the making. And of course, one of the things is that we want to be a home for the ENJOI Observatory, now that the project will finish. So there will be a home for the ENJOI Observatory inside Coalesce, and we still have to also to understand very much what are the aspects and the formats for each of these tools. That's what we will build during the next 4 years. So what we will support mainly is the mainstream of excellent science communication in the European research area, build capacity and encourage institutional changes, and also produce evidence-informed science communication policy recommendations. So this is a very, again, important aspect to bring the evidence, to bring the connection of the research and the practice to better encourage the uptake of science communication and science within the different policies. So here I just highlighted a few synergies thinking about the audience that we would have today. So thinking more about journalists, communities between both. There will be a lot of co-creation, training, and access to good practices in science communication and journalism. This improved mechanism for quick action that will benefit everyone. We also want to reinforce recognition. So one of the things that we would like to do is to encourage a EU prize for science communication. So there are already a few of them, but there's not like this big landmark within this scope, and we want to encourage it. And also very important, but that's, I hope that is encouraging for you, that it was a message from the high-level policymakers in Europe, is the respect of the press freedom. So I think this is a good news, and is something that we also have to take into consideration when we want to continue to build connections and relationships with the policymakers. On the long-term impact, what we would like to achieve, apart from the improve of the science and society relations and some of the things that I mentioned before, is that we really want to become the reference hub for science communicators, researchers, journalists, other science topic researchers, and this is widely used in their daily practice. It's very ambitious, as you know, but we're working hard. We will work hard with a lot of different people to try to achieve this and be a home for all, right? And also that sharing the best practices in science communication becomes a regular activity for all of our communities. So we fortunately have a picture from the team where you can recognize already some of you also here. So I very much thank all their efforts so far in these 9 months, which has been also challenging to set up this big consortium. So here are the partners. And finally, I would like everyone here or that are watching at home to join our community of practice and feel free then to participate in our activities. We will also have a newsletter where we will encourage, we will share not only our events but also relevant news in science communication, funding activities, and in somehow try to start creating what we believe is the future of science communication. So thank you very much. I hope I was on time. Okay.
Thank you, Joanna. I think this was perfectly on time. In fact, we are maybe a few minutes early, and I think it's a good moment to break. And we promised, especially to our partners, that you had time to go around Bologna for a while and have a glass of wine or whatever. I don't want to advertise alcohol necessarily, but so we have an appointment for tomorrow morning at 9:30. There is another streaming link that we have been putting out on the social media, so for the people at home, you can follow us tomorrow morning as well. There will be also journalists coming from other groups and other institutions tomorrow. We have the 4 hours of tomorrow morning are recognized as official training for Italian journalists, so that's one little step in the direction of involving journalists into science communication. We are going to meet here at 8 o'clock for the evening dinner, and now I say thank you very much. Of course, we need to take the picture, the consortium down, okay? The dinner is also down, so you come from number 10, and that's, right? Did I say everything? Okay. So have a good stroll around, and we'll see you at 8, and then tomorrow morning. Ciao. Okay.